Hello there! Welcome to the ReZero podcast. I'm your host, Wolf.
I'm your host, Gold.
I'm your host, Connor.
And today, gentlemen, we'll be talking about Arcade Phase 2 of the ReZero web novel. Very in-depth analysis. Yes!
Yes. Just I've got to get this out of my system. Spica. I've been holding in that name for so long that it has... I've had to, anytime if you've listened to this podcast, that if I catch my voice at all when I'm trying to say Louis' name, it's because I almost said Spica, and I almost spoiled Wolf about it.
You were being very inconspicuous.
I did. God. I had to be careful on whether I speak at her name or not.
Oh my god. I'm disappointed in both crazy. Of you.
But yeah, I mean, that's something I already knew of. Thank you, ReZero Wiki contributors. For that helpful bit of information. But yeah, I've known that for a while, and it's interesting mainly because, why is it interesting? Well, we'll talk about the etymology of the name that even the chapter itself talks about, but because we did a recent video podcast episode on Remif, and
yeah, that's her. That's her and Subaru's daughter's name is Spica in that.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just so. It's just like wow, that's kind of really set up well.
I know, it's interesting how that works. I think either consciously or subconsciously, Tepe wants us to be thinking that he thinks of her like a daughter almost. You know, he and Rem's daughter, if you were.
Very much so.
It's either that or he doesn't know as many star names as we originally gave him credit for. And it's like he knows Rigel and Spica, and that's pretty much it.
That's possible.
Like he's picked himself up a bit. Yeah.
On alternate timeline, he would it wasn't that he liked the name Spica, it was the only option because it's the only one he knew.
Yeah. He knows star names work as names in this world and wanted to make sure they didn't give him the straight Japanese name in here. It's just, all right, yeah, it's Rigel and Spica. That's all I got. We'll talk about that more later when it actually comes into it, but I just had to get that out of my system. I've been holding it in for almost a year.
I guess
it's crazy.
Just kind of like
the timeline of this podcast and how stuff like that occurs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's been a long time since we started these Arc 7 ones, eh? It's really cool to think about how far we've come. Like, it's been like an actual journey.
I thought we got it far, and then I read Arc 9, and now I don't think that anymore. We have to catch up, so we have to catch up.
Is it going to be like 3-hour-long podcast episodes?
Yes, per chapter.
Probably, yeah. Per chapter.
Yeah,
we'll have chapter. One episode on the first 10 chapters, and then another one on the next 3 or 4, and then every single chapter is going to get its own episode, and it's going to be some of our longer ones for some of these.
You know what's interesting is that eventually, like when you're catching up with something, it's easier to do it in one huge batch. But when you get one by one chapter, you have more to talk about because you're anticipating more. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Well, it leaves you with less immediate questions on like what's going to happen next and what's going to happen next because you just get that answer.
True, because you're like, why bother, right? Why bother speculating?
The nature of Tepe's cliffhanger writing is just that you'll get the answer typically in the next chapter, right?
Yeah, pretty much. That's what happens in this phase even.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, like that was, it's kind of a good starting point for this, is that last time I was certain that the events of Ceci killing Sphinx and that being like the huge deal was the end point of phase 1, not the opener to phase 2. Mm-hmm. And was really close to accidentally saying that, and glad I didn't and waited it out.
Yeah.
Because, hell, what an opener to the phase. Yeah. Just like, here's the main villain already dead.
Yeah. That, it already immediately gave me so many questions. I was like, Tepe? What? You just said
there was a possibility in my eyes because I was like, well, maybe Sphinx had her entire arc during the war. And the point is, if the zombies are still alive, the zombies themselves, and also people who knew Sphinx's plans, would be more integral to the story and kind of like we get the mystery about how her power works here, kind of set up, right? Mm-hmm. And I thought maybe they would have gone with the angle of like, we still had to figure out how to undo this, and that's what the arc's about, and people being like, Roswaal obviously being like, I know who this is,
Right. Although we kind of do get sort of the culmination with that towards the end of the phase with Balaroy's explanation of the dead are alive because they have unfinished business as like the main kind of driving motivation for any of the individual enemies that face, but also that this whole conflict is about people leaving things undone and unsaid and unspoken.
And really, go ahead. I was about to say.
And really?
Yeah, I was about to say that really, Tepe, this is almost him saying that these are all the unfinished threads from all the X novels. Is pretty much what I was going to conjecture. And I think that makes a lot of sense. It's him kind of saying the history of the world is vast, and we're going to try to touch on as much as possible to make it relevant to the modern story now. But to do so, I have to kind of literally trudge up old characters to have them confront the modern characters now.
Yeah, it's not like he can close the threads on the characters that we have around them. He can advance their stories a bit, sure, but he can't like give, say, Al closure on everything that he's dealing with.
Nope.
Right? Or even Roswaal and Otto to an extent. They can advance it, but he does have all these pre-existing characters that even if he introduces them and kills them in the same EX novel like he did with Miles, it still led to other further discussions that he had available to explore. And this, I mean, even like Hannibal, like for example, from the Sloth Hip, he's here as like an extra thread that was introduced in side content that probably didn't have a place in the main story. And so he's given them all a place. And I think that works super well for how much extra stuff he's written.
It's a very good use of this other content he's come up with. I think it very much in the sense of, especially because he's typically very meticulous, it seems, with how he plans out the story. I feel like he kind of went on a bit of a pantser writing vibe for 7 and 8, but in a way of like even the Gardener style of George R.R. Martin, where literally like he had all these characters that he was just playing around with and side stuff, and he just saw them grow into these other things, and he was like, okay, I just have to use this now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I actually wonder. I mean, to me, it feels odd a little bit, and not odd in a bad sense, but odd in a unexpected sense, in which really this early on I wouldn't expect a main villain of an entire 2-arc series span being culminated in Sphinx of all characters, a character who already met her end in a series of EX novels that are like 4 long, and also like the same characters from all other EX novels that have died, and then on top of that being like a Ryuzu clone, just a like, I know that she instigated everything that happened with Dem Human War. That's explained this, pretty well, just like a quick refresher. But like, even then, it's like, how relevant is that now, right? So we're bringing her back up so much that all this has to happen, which of course gets me to some of my theories about what her power, what the Immortal Sacrament means and stuff like that, because we'll talk about the soul, like the nature of this confusing thing that I gets me riled up every single time I think about it, because there's no end to it. And then also like it makes me wonder about Felix. I'll talk about that later as well. But yeah, interesting stuff.
Absolutely. Like a big, I mean, Sphinx is obviously a huge part of this, but it feels more like the actual conflict here is less against her specifically and more against what she's sort of representing here of over things that have been overlooked, as I said before, like the unfinished business, forgotten history, or just anyone's issues that they have neglected to move on from, right? Because like the resolution with the Ryuzus is that they're all just kind of vaguely working for Roswaal's, or etc. But like with Beatrice, Garfield, and Roz, it's got to be been kind of traumatizing to see her in here like this. As like an extra reminder of,
especially
like, this is a part of your past. Louis represents a huge part of like Subaru or Amelia's past they have to confront with. Like everyone has this. I mean, even Balaroy is part of Julius's past. Not that anyone remembers that, but he is.
Right.
And that ties into Flop and Medium and Vincent's history, and it's all just. It's like things left undone coming back to bite you, and like that's the real calamity.
Lamia
here.
Literally with Priscilla, like it makes a lot of sense. And all this makes so much sense that like when it came up in the story, I was like, oh, that's what this arc is about. Like, no matter how much I feel about Sphinx or whatever, or any of these characters that are coming back, the point really isn't the fact that I expect these guys to actually win or do anything substantial or stand for anything particularly substantial. It's just like Balaroy said, that they have unfinished business, right?
Mhm.
The things that they wanted in the past are the things that they probably still want now, right?
When
There's no development further to really consider too much. I mean, I have a feeling that Balaroy might have a few resolutions that he couldn't have beforehand because there's mysteries there that hasn't been explicated upon in the main story. And of
Like
course,
his engagement to Madeline and
right, Madeline, and also just being like, I'm good now, because he seems more friendly than the other zombies.
and like Flop and Medium bring this up in this phase, but did EX4 really properly explain why Balaroy was one of the ones rebelling against Vincent in that story? Like, I know that Vincent kind of used him for it, but
yeah,
he still fought.
It is explained, at least I think it's inferred. It very much like it was like a double agent sort of situation, and Vincent like knew what his actual goal was and was just like, okay, if this helps me get this as well, like I'll help you try and at least give a shot at that. Do you know what I mean?
Okay. I just wasn't sure.
I think a really interesting thing about this phase is that it does a very good job of having like these confrontations or these conflicts in the dialogue between these characters, especially with some of the pairs that get separated off with each other.
Yes.
But
a lot of interpersonal conflict here.
It then also has a really good, almost like, not theme in like the story sense that we sometimes meta talk about, but I mean theme is in like the setting for this phase, like this like crazy action-packed train fight, right? Like that's just a really compelling visual mental setting for me to picture a lot of these action events in this phase. I think it's a really cool like concept for Depay. I think this will work really well as like an animated section if we ever do get Arc 7 animated.
Yeah, I agree.
Arc 7, yeah. I just out of all the stuff so far, like there's other moments, of course, but when it comes to like an actual set piece itself, this stands out the most to me.
I definitely think that the idea of the caravan train works super well for both the logical structure of, we have to move everything at once.
Yes.
But it's also really nice that it keeps everyone moving forward in the story and like physically, but it keeps them all really tight. Like everyone is, I don't want to say claustrophobic because they never gave that vibe, but there's nowhere anyone can go to escape each other here.
Yes, like there's no running away from these scenarios. I mean, that's very apparent with the way Subaru has to deal with the Louis and Spica problem, right?
Yeah, things have to be addressed here and now. You can't let this go because everyone can still see you. But before we move on from kind of the last topic entirely, I did want to ask if the thought of unfinished business, especially with a Ryuzu clone kind of being front and center here, brought back any memories of an earlier arc that touched on that concept a lot as well? Back with the first trial in Arc 4?
Yeah, like that kind of not letting the past hold you back from your true future, right?
And then this coming in as sort of you can't ignore the past entirely either, which feeds into like the whole conflict with Spica as well.
Yes, very much so. I think also very relevant to Subaru, who's constantly living in these ideas of the past, present, and future all at once, right?
Right. I mean, he's literally living in the past right now.
Yeah.
Honestly, the more I talk on this idea of that, the more relevant to the whole phase it seems, because that's the crux of the conversation between Otto and Roswaal. It's Subaru and Rem's discussion about Louis and Spica being the one to take her past away.
Yeah.
And like what that means for them now. It's Medium and Flop's past with Balaroy, and then finally those two specifically starting to look into the future for options as well. Like, I mean, hats off to Flop for being kind of the only one looking ahead here.
Yes, very much
well.
so. With his little shenanigans,
Yeah,
talk about a bit more. Overall, we'll discuss this a bit more when we're on to the topic of Spica, because that's going to be like a whole fucking conversation in itself. But I think Depay has done at least in my opinion, a very mature and interesting look at what redemption means and what victimhood means in this phase. And I think he pulled it off in a really interesting, dynamic way that leaves me more questions than answers, but in a positive way.
I think I agree for the most part as well.
I think this was one of the things that I said eons ago when I was first reading Arc 5, which was exactly what came up in terms of what Subaru had to contend with everybody else, which was pretty much like, are the archbishops inherently evil, right? And why would you say that knowing what you know about your own powers?
Yeah.
You know, there's parts of that I felt was very gratifying to see somebody finally be like, okay, why would you say this about, like Spica, who you hated, all of a sudden just because of X, Y, or Z, you're now okay with it? It makes, yeah.
I think Spica kind of is able to exist as an exception to that because she didn't really have, I mean, even a body to do actions with, but really like a personhood before the end of 6. At that point, she existed like literally beyond space and time, having to rely on 2 utterly insane brothers to bring her any semblance of identity, concept, experience. So her actions, while not forgivable, I think are more like able to be moved on from in a way that this touches on. Whereas if they tried to put Regulus in a similar position of him like coming to an understanding of, I'm sorry I did terrible things, there's no working with him after what he's done and the way he did it.
Yeah, there's a concept that I was thinking about, which is like, if somebody hurts you, right? Hurts you specifically, and then goes on and does nothing bad ever again, where is it in your heart to decide whether or not they should die, right? Like, then it's inherently selfish in a way if they could do good things afterwards or whatever, grow as a person. But then it's like, if they hurt somebody else, then by not punishing them, then you are hurting other people. It's one of those things where this arc is all about those sort of decisions that Uber has to make. I think it's wise to bring it up here because it's a hypocrisy that he's been living with. I mean, not hypocrisy, but like the type of things and arbitrariness that everybody lives with in their day-to-day lives.
Yes, exactly.
I think one of the things that people don't realize a lot is like the proximity to people that you know and can understand and how it affects your understanding of your own morality, right? Like, you can overlook things that you would call out very easily in other people so long as you are close to them enough, and not even just close to them and knowing them. Like, you just have to live around them. You have to know who they are. It's easy to see like a hypothetical on a piece of paper and saying that, Louis killed 100 people. That means she has to save 101 lives, right? And, that could be the case, but isn't it just enough that she doesn't kill any of their lives and then she can just live the rest of her life,
Making up for it?
Yeah.
And that's like the kind of thing of like, I think that's the nuance they're trying to explain in this phase of that's the thing Subaru can think, but for other people that can't consider that, that's the argument they have to make, right?
Yes. Well, it's also like another aspect of Subaru that only he can really experience because of the way that Return by Death works. That he has this entirely different perspective on a lot of people based on actions that they would have no memory of doing.
Yes.
And he's always forgiven them for it. Like, if in this case, I mean, we can just have our Spica conversation here.
Yeah, let's just have it now. Yeah.
But if Spica has no memory of doing the things that she's done, then is she any really different, in Subaru's mind at least, to Ram and Rem, to Otto, to Garfield, to everyone in that room that had killed him or tortured him previously, but based on things going differently in the canon loop, they have no memory of doing that or even of wanting to do it.
Yeah.
And so like Louis in that very similar state, but to get that across to everyone else, letting them see her as a different person in his eyes and their eyes makes a lot of sense. But that makes it really interesting that Otto's kind of the stickler against that, because he's also kind of the one that's outside the perspective of like the Tome of Wisdom and such. But that's a lot of weird speculation I don't want to get into.
Yeah, that's we won't. I imagine when we get to Roswaal and Otto, we'll talk a bit more about that. But there's just so much that could be that I don't know where to start on that, honestly. But when it comes to Spica, I'm really, really interested by like just the way the scene itself was written. Of okay, like Rem Subaru slowly having to break down Rem's rules around Louis and having to come and let her accept a truth that she clearly is smart enough to know about but has been avoiding, right?
Yeah, she definitely had already figured it out.
And it really plays into like how much Subaru has grown as a person for him to be able to navigate a lot of these really tough situations just so well. And we having this moment of like, okay, you have to have your from zero moment. It just feels so apt for the way Spica is kind of played as like a surrogate daughter figure for the both of them, right?
Yes.
It's just really appropriate. And I like that Tapei is making a distinction where he's saying Spica and Louis Arneb, the reason why Spica can have this potential path towards redemption is because she is not Louis Arneb. And it's not because archbishops are, at least from what, this is the inference and this is what I'm going to say, it's not because archbishops are inherently evil. It's because when you become an archbishop, you are evil, right? And
really to become one, you kind of have to already be in that
mindset
position. Yeah, in that mindset.
And
so Louis is the only one that really started that way and can work her way out of it.
Like there's an actual feasible way where you could say not only does she have no experience and hasn't lived a life, she hasn't had a body. She can't talk properly, right? Like
it's another thing she has in common with the original Spica as well.
Yeah, it's a very much a thing of like, okay, it's almost like a new birth, like fully, like she's actually almost a newborn in a lot of ways.
Yeah, everyone has like called her a baby a lot in this.
And it's like this very cool moment of rebirth, and it feels just so appropriate for Subaru to not only give this name, which reading Rem, if you know, is a thing of like, if I had a daughter, I'd call her Spica, right? Mm-hmm. But I think that extra element of, especially with the fate talk with Vincent in the previous phase, about like saying fate is the enemy, not the destination, right? Like, and changing fate being a very obviously the main theme of the series. I think it's really interesting that Subaru is like, okay, so this name before was the wrong direction. I rename you and I dub the Spica, right? Mm-hmm. And like the effect of almost her star name changing could have a different change on her destiny in a way, is the kind of vibe I was getting. And that is really interesting because that even speaks to the idea of like how, you know, Petal Geese being really incompatible with his stuff, him not actually having the real star name, right? And
yes, that his was like off and altered from it.
Yeah, and how like the intent of that is really important. But then it actually adds extra questions to me about Al, right? Where I'm like, okay, how does this play into this? Because Aldebaran is not a Japanese name.
No, it is not.
So
absolutely isn't.
Where does this come from? I know we've talked a lot about Al in the previous phases. That's all I'm going to say, but I think that's just an interesting point to make. I think it's really...
We'll talk about that. Yeah, we'll talk about that in a second. I mean, we can talk about it now, I guess.
We can probably... Yeah, I'll have his moment this episode.
You're right. I'll talk about it when I talk about Spica.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, like, just to get your two's perspective in this scenario, like, you're in the room with everyone else trying to decide on the fate of Louis Arneb in this situation. Mm-hmm. You've been told she's important to the Great Disaster scenario. You also know her history as the Sin Archbishop that attacked everyone and stole Subaru's name and did every other evil thing that she's done up to here. Where do you, Wolf and Gold, stand in this argument, not knowing that what Subaru does is even a possibility?
For me, it would probably be... I'm just a very optimistic person when it comes to people. Maybe too much to a degree. So I would be very much like excited by that as a prospect, I think. Like that idea of, okay, not only could this person help save a lot of people and like make up for that, but like this is like a new start, right? Mm-hmm. But I will preface by saying if I was colored by those experiences, I probably have that element of pragmatism in my brain that I think Otto has, where it's like, okay, she's a useful tool to solve this scenario, and then it's like a problem pushed ahead in a way.
Well, you know what's very interesting is that I thought the conversation with Roswaal was very apt because at a certain point in his life, he sees himself as a tool to, getting to an end, right?
Yes.
And I would think that he would understand more so closely what it means to consort with an evil, power or design or route of thinking in order to get a good end. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, even if the situation seems, like very wrought for corruption and like being sort of like covered with a sort of evil tint, right? Like most authorities seem like that, right? We've talked about how the sage probably can encompass all of that, but the idea is that there is a possibility, right? And where there's a possibility, there is hope, or whatever Roswaal said. I think like in this scenario where prophecy is on the line and stuff like that, and I don't want to put too much, stock into prophecies, not just in stories, but like obviously in general.
Mm-hmm.
But like I would believe if I'm part of the group that you can stray from a prophecy and still succeed to some extent. But in this case, there's really no reason why not. Like once you see who Spica is now, it's hard to think of her as an evil holder of this power that has been decried throughout the ages as like a child's bedroom story about the witch cult or whatever, or the reports of their misdeeds and evil wickedness, right? And yeah,
Right.
I mean, I think like the thing is, right, and this is the way that it always works, which is that it's supposed to represent that there's sin inside all of us, and we can choose what we want to do with that sin, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like you utilize it to good ends, these feelings inside of you. So yeah, I'd probably give it a chance.
Personally, I think that if I was in this scenario, I'd be saying the exact same things that Otto is saying. But as a reader, I have grown to adore this feisty little mumbling munchkin a lot.
Yeah.
Well, of course,
And was just waiting for Amelia to step in with her usual hyper optimistic way of getting everyone to agree with her. But in hindsight, I'm very glad that that's not exactly what happened and there was pushback, because I think it makes the whole scene work better, that there is
that underlying
this
conflict.
extra level of conflict. Yes.
Yeah, I also, it's such a cool way to develop Otto's character that I wasn't expecting.
Mm-hmm.
In a way of like, he's kind of going in a different direction, even if he's tagging along. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
Like
And
He's not on the same instant page
he's not
as everyone
walking
else.
in the light.
Yeah. And I think like that part of it is very interesting for him because we've talked about before how like I think we exaggerate a bit that everybody is sort of like either along Subaru's mindset or reflection of him in some sense, and Otto is an exception and Julius is an exception, like stuff like that.
I don't even know if Julius is an exception. I think it might just be Otto.
Yeah, but when I took to the exaggerated state, like this is the clear example of why that sticks out so well.
Mhm.
Not only did we talk about last phase about like how Subaru had to act more like Otto to get across to Vincent what he was trying to get across, but in this very phase, we see where Otto stands, where nobody else can stand in the Amelia camp, and why he's so valuable. Like he saw through something that like is a trope in like stuff like this wherein like you trust a bad guy because of a circumstance, but then all suspicion's gone immediately from everybody.
Yes,
because
exactly.
they trust
Vegeta
him.
hasn't killed anyone in weeks. He's a good guy now.
Yeah,
Kind of.
exactly. Yeah. So like the fact that he's like, no, I'm still thinking about what you're trying to do, and I'm not going to let you get away with it, and know that like you can't hurt me even if you want to get rid of me. Like
Yes.
he's already one step ahead of Roswaal and puts it straight to him.
And it's also an element too of that's how he protects the people he loves, right? That's his way of showing love.
Yeah, it's another thing that he has in common with even like Petra.
Yes.
Where she has her own goals, and while she does tend to agree with Super and Amelia a lot of the time, it's like with Roswaal as an example, she still hasn't like lightened up or forgiven him in any sense. It's absolutely still like, you are the one that did all those terrible things. I'm not going to let you forget it.
Yeah, and we talk about how Roswaal, I mean, even in this phase, he like wants that still. I think is very interesting. He's very happy to be reprimanded by Petra. I think like there's like a fragility to Roswaal now, which feels very earnest.
Roswaal, yes.
Yeah. Beforehand, it was like manic. Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Yes,
to me,
yes.
he feels like someone who wants to do better, but he isn't making the choices to do so yet.
Yes.
Like he hasn't taken the first steps towards change, but he desperately wants to be the changed man. There's just that he still has his giant goal, like, focusing him.
It's like it's that kind of thing where for a lot of the characters in the story, it's like, oh, Roswaal's revealed all his cards, but he's kept one or two to his chest that Otto is keeping an eye on, right? Like, it's this idea that Roswaal, no matter how sincere his desire to be a better man, his desire to achieve this goal is greater, right? And that will come into opposition with the rest of the camp in some way. And that's why Otto is prepared and preparing and trying to protect the rest of the camp, because he knows ultimately that no matter how fond Roswaal is for these people, which he definitely is, Roswaal has turned himself into that single-minded person that he wanted Subaru to be in Arc 4. He's chiseled himself into this stake. He's forged himself into this weapon. He's made himself this tool for this one purpose. And there isn't a lot of flexibility in that for him. And I think...
Well, yes.
I think that's caused a lot of emotional turmoil in him, because he very much is a man. Like, he's not a heartless monster like he tries to portray himself to be.
He's not Arc 1 or Arc 4 Roswaal anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, especially ever since he's been free from Echidna's book, obviously, this delusion, right? And ever since he realized that Beatrice, he could finally open up to her, right? All these things have kind of kept it into perspective to think about the strength of other people.
Yes.
Which beforehand he did not acknowledge, right?
But
and ever since then he's been opening up to other people.
The problem then comes, and this is a thing Otto points out so well in this confrontation between the two of them, which is he's not gotten rid of delusion in the sense that he's replaced his delusion with another. He's so...
Yes, on Subaru, yeah.
Yeah, on Subaru and Emilia, he's transferred that belief and that desire and that desperation onto them to achieve his goal by proxy. He's not this cold, logical, amazing plotter in that sense of, like, I've got it all set. He's devoted, right? This is his way to get his almost religious obsession. And Otto points this out immediately. He's like, yeah, I know that belief is insincere. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Well, like, with their confrontation kind of coming to the point of Otto getting to the understanding that Roswaal's trying to make him want to leave or to actually leave.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that's because Roswaal sees Otto as a threat to his goal in general, or because Otto is the one that isn't going along with what Emilia and Subaru want?
I think
100%.
I think it's actually both, yeah.
I think the thing is, right, depending on exactly the reason why Roswaal wants to kill the dragon, there is wiggle room for him there, right, obviously. I think the thing that makes the most sense is that Otto has been, from the very moment Roswaal has seen him, somebody, as Roswaal admitted, immensely capable beyond anybody else that he could ever hire. He's irreplaceable, right?
Mm-hmm.
And on top of that, he is somebody that is so unpredictable because he does not fall in line with other people's things. Mm-hmm. He's just an ordinary guy, you know. Everybody else has their own grand destinies that they're supposedly forging. Yeah, well, yeah, that too, but also Roswaal read that book for so long, and his brain works in the line of observers, prophecies, probably like...
If this, then that.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And because of that, like, ever since Otto was not in his book, he's thought to himself that this is the greatest variable that I cannot account for. And I think he's still wary about it, you know?
It's that also that kind of thing too of, like, Otto could be probably one of the few people in the Emilia camp that could dissuade or even, like, get to Subaru in a moment of where he's gone too far, or there's a point where, like, he's like, okay, seriously, you need to think for a second. And Roswaal might not want that either, right? Like, that ability to have that person that can oppose your views.
Mm-hmm.
And be the one that says, okay, I love you, bro, but you're fucking stupid, and here's why, right? Like, in reality, unless you want to live in an echo chamber, everyone in their life needs someone to have that real, honest conversation with them. And that includes Subaru and Emilia, who need it the most because of how strong their idealism is.
Yes.
And I think Roswaal deep down knows that, and knows that the best way to achieve the goals he wants to achieve is to heighten that as much as possible, to encourage that as much as possible. I mean, that's why he makes the threat to Subaru, right? At the end of Arc 4. Like, you've chosen this path, so make sure you save everyone, because if you don't, I'm going to make you reset, like, force, right?
If this is the path you want to walk, then I will walk it too.
Yeah.
Right. I think that's the key operating thing here, is that Roswaal believes in Subaru, which means that if Otto can influence Subaru or Amelia away from their desired path, he doesn't trust that.
Yes.
I think that's what it comes down to. He understands that he's capable, but he believes that Otto's way of going things will will temper a lot of Subaru's, like, own desires to see things through in a very grand way. Like, even like Otto's own, like, stated counters to all of the plans that they had going on throughout this phase. It ran in counter of what Roswaal would think would be very apt for somebody of Subaru and Amelia's stature,
I mean,
Well, like, let's be Roswaal for a second and think super grand picture here. Like, it's late in the royal selection, and Amelia is not done too much herself because most of her camp's accomplishments ended up getting painted to Subaru.
yes.
Otto might be one who could convince her, you don't have to complete this. There are other ways to go about getting what you want, and stopping Subaru from doing whatever he can
But
to
that cuts...
get her there. And Roswaal could see that as, maybe that could happen, I don't know. Or any other, like, grand scale level problems that he just can't account for. And Otto really just represents that, like, the variable. You said it perfectly before with that he is that cog in the machine. You just don't know what it's going to do.
The wild card, yeah.
Wild card, yes.
It's turning. You don't know exactly where it's turning to. I think one of the things that I wonder now is Roswell's desire for Amelia to win the royal selection only so that the dragon shows up and he can kill him? Or, like, do you think that, how does that work? Because to me, I'm like, what exactly is required of somebody? Like, why does he require somebody specific to win in this pact with the dragon if he's going to annul it anyways?
I think, well, with how powerful we know dragons are, I wonder if an important aspect of it is the access to the dragon, to let its guard down, or to say, like, okay, very much like Freeman, or kill yourself. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, like, Amelia is controllable from Roswell's point of view.
Yeah.
Like, that's not going to be true for any other candidates. He could never get them to do what they don't want to do. Amelia could be persuaded to do that. And so if it's something where, like, whoever makes the covenant has a level of control over Volcanica, because as we've seen him, he doesn't have a lot of will of his self anymore.
No,
It's just the covenant itself that he's like saying.
Yeah, the protocol, right? Like the soul's protocol, right? And one of the things that I was thinking about is, like, at a certain point, Volcanica is going to come to a point in which he is just a tool to be utilized as well. I think, like, there is a chance that somebody cleverly uses him throughout this royal selection to do, like, you need him, of course, if you're, like, somebody who cares about the witch being sealed to stay alive, right? But the kingdom needs it as its protector. In the same vein, if Roswaal wants to kill the dragon, does that not just release Satella, or what? I'm not sure. So I'm like, what is he up to?
If I'm thinking from Roswell's perspective here, I'm also thinking, if this is the sort of thing that's going along those lines of thought, right? That, like, this stated goal, Otto is the variable in which, if these two scenarios I'm going to mention right now play out, he can influence and change them. Where, for instance, say, I've predicted a lot that Subaru might have not like an evil route later on in the story, but more like he kind of like has an issue that causes conflict with the rest of the camp, right? And that leads to the whole thing with Amelia, like, disavowing him again, or like telling him to go away.
You're talking about the future prophecies, right?
Yeah.
Garfield's, I'm gonna kill you, not
and
to
also,
use Subaru.
And also Amelia's, I hate you.
If that is said to Subaru, it isn't necessarily.
Yeah, that's true. But what I'm saying is, if that is true, would that be a thing of like Roswaal's trying to get to this point and using Subaru to get Amelia to win the selection, and then distancing Subaru from Amelia so he can then influence her to get the dragon to die? Because he's like, okay, I know this is necessarily not the best thing to do, but this will save all of your people in the forest. And because Subaru isn't there,
exactly. He doesn't need to do that much convincing. The way to save the elves of the forest involves killing the dragon to get its heart's blood.
Yes, and if Subaru and Otto, by that point, either not there, or maybe Subaru's too far gone and Otto isn't there to help him stop this, that would go into Roswaal's plans, right?
Mm-hmm.
I forgot about the blood of the dragon.
Yeah, it's like the last drops of blood from the dragon's heart or something.
Yeah.
Correct. That healing property.
I mean, that's why they even having like food issues in the kingdom, right? Because I know there's like
can't bless the harvest.
It literally influences everything in the kingdom. It's insane. But yeah, I think it's
we might want to move on from Roswaal for a bit. We're getting into some pretty heavy speculation with that.
This is like very, very heavy theorizing speculation, like last arc of the story shit. So let's continue. I'm just going to throw out some random stuff that I think is cool, that I like is mentioned in here. Julius having that scar under his eye, making him, look more handsome and more grizzled.
That's going to go great with his eyelash extensions.
Yeah, exactly.
One of the things I wanted to mention that I thought was very funny is when Julius is like, he's like a history nerd, right? But like, there's also part of him that's like, wow, I think Subaru's like, wow, Julius, you get to fight more people from the past, and he's not particularly like happy about it either. He's like, I got enough. Yeah, I already meet the first sword say it. I think I'm okay. I thought that was very funny.
I love that Subaru acknowledges how much Julius has grown. Just even like his posture and how he's like thrown away his knight's armor a bit in a way.
Yeah. He's thrown away entirely. He's taken up the... in a weird way, his style now reflects an aspect of Subaru being Japanese as well. It's not like intentional on Julius's part in any way, but it is a cool design shift for him.
Mm-hmm. I also...
I was going to say, there was a moment where Julius reintroduced himself again, and people are like, who are you? I thought that was so funny.
It just makes my heart sad. Like, let him have his name back. Come on.
Yeah, that's another big part of this.
It's his name, Rem's memories, and Crucia's memories. That's the only thing we need to get out of Gluttony. They can keep the rest of it.
He's so happy to see Vincent too. It's like,
oh, dude, we can talk Shakespeare together. Oh, you don't remember when I saved your life multiple times in the same day.
But Vincent being smart enough to figure out that there's something weird going on there because of how Julius is acting towards him is just so in character for Vincent.
Yeah, I can tell you're important. Don't go anywhere.
But I love the way Julius finally gets Subaru to eke out in his silly tsundere way that they're friends.
Mm-hmm.
In this phase too, like it's actually saying, I guess you're my friend, kind of, maybe, yeah. I guess we've gone through lots together, yeah, whatever.
I guess at this point, like, what do you have to lose?
Yeah.
This is also Subaru, who isn't going to be like romantically emasculated by Julius's presence.
Yeah, exactly. It's no longer about that. It's way past.
He's also 10 years old here and doesn't have those hormones and feelings about him.
That's a part of it. Yeah, I think like the image of the fact that he's doing this all while he's a kid is very funny.
Yes,
a lot of the images. I mean, he talks more or less normal-ish for his normal self here. I think like he's gotten past a lot of the memory, like not the memory, but the personality like things where he's like, what's going on?
Well, his personality is definitely still his younger self, but at least the memory loss issue that he was facing before, it seems to be like he's got a handle on it, especially with Beatrice back at his side. It was very
much an issue of being separated from the others, I think.
Yeah, that's part of it, for sure.
I love how integral Julius is to this phase too, and that bond and trust immediately of this moment of, Julius, I need your help. Yep, come in, cuts open the wall, jumps out.
Mm-hmm.
It's so refreshing to see. It's nice to see Subaru have his allies back and they just listen to him, you know? There was enough stress from that in the previous arc, you know?
He doesn't have to reset 30 times to get the exact phrasing to make the people do what he needs to do. Which it's also nice that he kind of reflects on that a bit, and it's like not having to like rely on basically quick saving as he was before.
Not doing the L method.
When he did die this phase, he solved it in like 2 loops, pretty much. Which was like, people trusted him enough to believe exactly what he had to say.
Yes. And also that I think Subaru is really growing in... It sounds fucked up to say, in his use of return by death, in that sense of he's more sharp. He's literally saying every death that I have is a waste and is doing something wrong. Like, he's very refocused on that. Like, he's making sure to reduce his amount of deaths as much as possible.
Well, to that point, I think it's more or less the fact that he's always been like that, but like, he's gotten better at adapting to when he does die.
Yes.
Not wasting time thinking, did I just die? What just happened?
Yeah,
the plan, he snaps into it immediately. He's like, okay, this is what's going to happen, guys.
I think a large part of that is he can now, in a weird way, trust Satella.
Yes.
Like, when he hears the, like, whispered, I love you when he comes back, it's not, like, something that's sending, like, shivers and hatred down his spine anymore. It's almost like a reassurance that things are as they should be and that he doesn't have to freak out as much.
Yeah, he no longer has return by death without love, which is what was fucking him up before, right? And then
which has got to be like a relieving feeling that even though it's still a terrible thing that's happening to him, the actual aspect of return by death is not necessarily as much of a curse as he used to feel that it was, that it is done with love.
Yeah.
He tangibly believes that now.
Another really cool thing is we get a bit more Kararagi world building in this.
Oh yeah, with like the lords ruling it and reflecting that in Pristella.
Yeah, and how like that was actually inspired by that for Pristella and not the other way around, which I thought was really cool. And also that it's like, because before I had the impression that the city-states it was like a way to refer to the region, not a country, but it seems more like a federal system from the way they've explained it. It's like 10 large cities that have their own mayor, and they make up like a council that leads them all. And it's they called it the League of Cities. I was like, oh, that's a really cool like differentiating in like government than what I was expecting for Kararagi. So having that thing of like Anastasia being their emissary makes a lot more sense.
Do we want to talk about their explanation on why they're getting involved in this as well?
Yes, I think that's a really interesting topic to talk about.
Let's go back to that. And Hellbell, too.
Yes, my boy!
I can't believe Hellbell and Spica are in the same arc together.
Yo, that's crazy. That's crazy.
That is funny. I think like this is a very interesting way to present the character foremost, because in this situation, none of the characters really can get to know him, right? He's just there as a hired muscle at this point.
He's just beating shit up, literally.
Yeah. And his personality is still the exact same as earlier, of course. It's very fun and he feels very reliable. A lot of the things, there's like I would say like a 3-act break in this sort of phase in which like Hellbell solves one problem, Hellbell solves the second, Hellbell solves the third, and that's
like, damn, that's a big dragon.
Yeah,
cracks knuckles. Go deal with that.
Oh man, I can't believe I didn't kill it quicker. Shit.
Yeah.
Must be losing my touch.
Yeah, I'm getting too old. I need some candy, except it will kill me if I eat it.
Yeah.
If nothing else with Hellbell here, especially when this phase starts with the absolutely insane Cecilis, it's nice to have this almost refresher on that not everyone who is that level of power is as insane as Cecilis and the other divine generals, or as almost detached and broken as Reinhard is.
It's a showing that strength isn't all corrupting, right? Like you can be strong and still
right. I agree.
A functioning human being.
So long as I guess you're smoking pot the whole time.
Yeah, you gotta just chill out.
Well, that's a part of it.
Him and Idra are gonna.
I mean, I need him and Yorna to just pair up with their Kisarus and just have like a chill bong session for a while.
They're gonna be like, "Yo, Subaru, you ever smoked before? Here, come here, bro." There's this. Tapei makes his title, the Admirer, just hits so well for his character too, because one of my favorite moments of this phase is a little moment where he's like thinking about the scenario and stuff and how the ground dragons are panicking for the train itself, and then Patrichet is unites them all together, like growls out, is like unites all the ground dragons and keeps them focused, and he's like, wow, that ground dragon, I admire that. That's awesome. Very manly. I mean, very maiden-like. Yes. That was one of my favorite moments of this phase. It's just such a little thing, but it's just so wholesome.
Everyone, Halibo really refines his like S tier character list.
Yes.
And no one disagrees with his picks. The actual, just remind me so I don't accidentally say something stupid here. Does Anastasia explain why they're coming in from Kararagi and are there to help? Okay.
Yeah, because they were attacked as well.
Yeah, it was a whole town of 2,000 people that's now wiped off the map because they replaced them. Like, it was a really cool explanation as to how they discovered this too, where because they're so merchant and like supply focused and like they have very detailed logs, they realized the supply consumption wasn't making sense for the town itself. So they go there and they find out this is like a test run. All of these zombies completely replaced the people and were living as them in that town. It's terrifying. Mm-hmm. But then it becomes a thing of like, okay, so we have an already vested interest in it. Halibel's already dealt with that scenario in Kararagi. And Vincent's like, okay, so it's your country's fault then, or it's the kingdom's country's fault because of all of the history of the Demi-Human War. He's doing that very Vincent thing of like, oh yeah, I'm gonna verbally challenge you and see how you play with that. And they're like, no, don't get us wrong. These test runs, mate, test runs. Like, that's not the origin of the attack. That's not where it came from. This is like how it came to be, right? And
yeah,
Kararagi is very much the vested interest of, okay, we do not like intervening in other countries, and let's be honest, the Wallachia is a greedy expansionist empire, and we don't have great relations with them anyway. But this is a world-level threat. This is like the difference between actual life and actual death. Like, it's like a different concept altogether, right?
If it doesn't stop here, it's going to spread everywhere else,
too.
Yeah,
exactly. It's that kind of thing of, this is self-interested survivalism, work with all these people while we can, and if for whatever reason that does go wrong, the Iron Fang, Ricardo, and all of those peeps are building a defense army on the border of Wallachia in case Wallachia is destroyed. Which was a really good explanation and kind of made sense in the universe. Okay, they're not being stupid. They've figured out how to deal with this in a logical way, and it doesn't feel like anything's a Deus Ex Machina with this stuff.
The only concern I have about this whole explanation with it is I don't think they gave a good reason or excuse why Anastasia specifically made the trip to Wallachia, because I feel like just the same as Priscilla had to sneak in, Amelia had to sneak in. Mm-hmm. It seems like it's just a known fact that Anastasia went there, and that's not ever really addressed. Like, Julius and Hannibal totally makes absolute sense to send them in and deal with the situation. Anastasia as their candidate, I feel like they shouldn't have brought her. Like, it didn't make logical or reasonable sense, and they didn't give a good excuse on how they got around that for her.
It's just because they don't talk about it very much, but my inference was her thing of like, make it like she's basically here to say, if we are successful, we're making sure we're robbing the Empire blind for all of the help we gave them.
But that still doesn't require her to be there.
Yeah,
I think it's colored by her being like the best negotiator from Kararagi, right?
True. I think that's part of the explanation that they're going to be using there. I think one of the things that I wonder is if Scarf Donna is here for a reason. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. She's here to observe something happening. Mm-hmm. I think there's obvious things about the connection between her and Sphinx that probably needs to at least be explicated somehow. I think the idea of what, artificial spirits are is very closely tied to the things going on right now in the story. And I think, all these threads that is pulled to Echidna's past is here for a reason. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying that Echidna's going to show back up right now. I know she's off doing other stuff, probably.
D&D adventures.
Yes, trying to collect the rest of the souls. But there's a reason why like there's a reason why this is coming back up now with all these characters confronting Sphinx, confronting old Rizu, confronting all this stuff about soul transcription and stuff like that. And it's because, let's get into it, I guess. The mortal sacrament of the king, what is it called?
Sacrament of the Immortal King
is Echidna's spell, right? And
yes, what Sphinx is doing is like a perfected version of what Echidna had developed in that time.
Yes. And because of that, right, like my opinion is that whatever Sphinx is doing is a precursor to what Echidna wanted to do. Or she's been doing this for a while because she's been around for a while. She's figured something out, is using it now, right? I think because of that, there is a lot to be inferenced about, I think we're on the right path when I say that Sphinx is probably Al's teacher. And I think that he had a failed soul transcription. And that's why the name was forced onto him, Aldebaran. Right?
Almost like if he was like trying to like take a name, to take that, or like try to maybe get rid of his name because he didn't want to be a follower anymore, something like that.
Well, no, it was pretty much taught to. I think he was a person from our world, right?
Yeah.
But I think he was his soul was maybe transcribed to that of like the sage or something, and in that comes sort of the experimentation that Echidna wants to do, right? Like this immortality thing.
I had taken it as the understanding that because it wasn't something that was said to have been like perfected by Echidna at the time, that like it needed someone with the skill of Felix to actually be able to pull it off, who is like at a level of healing magic that Echidna didn't reach for that like specifically.
Not that it was here. Yeah.
Right, but it was like one of the routes of immortality that she was attempting to pull off.
Yeah, I mean,
just not one of the successful ones.
Roswaal even thinks about that, mentions that, where Roswaal's path was blood, hers was mana, and this is earth, right? Like, this is like a further, like, branch away from this original concept of Sacrament of the Immortal King.
Yes, I think one of the things that I was going to put together here is that there is, throughout time in the story, going to be many iterations of the same idea. And I think we're going to be seeing it more and more as the series progresses, as in characters throughout the story that are confusing to us or don't make sense. Even somebody like, it might be slightly different than what happened with Pandora, right? With Fortuna, right? But like, for example, what's her face? Capella, right? One of the things that I bet is going to happen is that we're going to see that like these iteration of what is the soul, what is the ode, what is the container, who's transcribing what from what, like is the difference between a lot of these things culminating in the answer that is the big answers in the story, which is like who is Al, who is Satella, like all these
what
things.
The connection between Flugel, Subaru, Satella, and Amelia.
I think it's all going to have to do with this type of magic.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. I mean, with how much focus is being put on it, it's being built up to something, right?
Yeah.
What I'll also say is that I really like that Tappei is doing his best to keep his world building consistent and give you like little branches of things to help you connect dots. Like, do you guys remember the explanation in Arc 5 about restoration yang magic, right? To fix objects and such?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I like how that's also used here to say this is how they're regenerating. It's not like healing magic, it's restoration magic.
Yes, that it's which also they managed to pull off into duplication magic, which I thought was
really
an interesting point that they progress it to towards the end.
Here's what I was going to say as well, right? You're like, we need somebody as skilled as Felix to cast this magic. What is this then? Right? Because I see this magic and I'm like, this is magic on a scale we've never seen before.
Yeah.
It sure is.
this is magic so strong that I'm like, what did she do?
I mean,
Like,
even just the circumstances of a Sphinx not being able to permanently die, right? Like,
Well,
yeah,
it's even not even that she can't permanently die, because that's just part of the spell. It's the spell persists past her
that.
death.
That's what I meant. Yeah.
like where
How is the solution to this problem? Like, where is the solution to this problem? Right? And that's
doesn't she have like a phylactery? Like she's like a lich?
yes.
Like,
yeah.
like I don't know, but like there
Well, then why was she alive before the time that Cecilus killed her if she had already committed herself to undeath that way?
yeah.
there's a part of me that wonders if it has to do with the Ryuzu Mather's soul crystal thing, where it's like she did something similar to that on herself again, and she's like replicating herself in that way.
Or it's like
Yeah.
it sounds kind of gross to say, but it's like an incestuous technique almost.
Well, what I mean is that like she probably has like, here is my soul. When it cycles back to Odlagna, it goes into this battery.
Mm-hmm.
This battery then cycles back out into the world, into like a medium of some sort. Like there was like magic circles that they used back in the war or whatever. Like she probably has like artifacts, like media, right? Like that's another thing I couldn't have discovered.
Yes.
Like maybe media or something to kind of ground. And of course, it's made of objects, right? These vessels are shaped by the souls of the people who are in it, right?
Yes.
And because the soul creates the body shape, even if it's like earth, right? Like that's what the body's made out of, right?
Yeah.
As what's
Yeah,
said.
it is.
And
Like
because
centered
of that,
around the bug thing in their heart.
Yes.
Yeah.
The
and
core
because of that, like therein it cycles back into that bug thing. The bug thing then sprouts out to the container, and the container then shapes into whatever form it requires. But then it's like, who is casting this magic from where? Is it like a pain thing where like she's like actually inside of the roots of like a great tree or something,
I think you're asking really good questions, Gold. And it's making me very excited for you to keep reading.
Yeah.
Like
Sorry,
the source of where is this coming from? Like, because there's so many inconsistencies with what we're learning, right? Like, just okay, this is solution, but solution doesn't work. This is why it doesn't work. But why is that the case? Like, we're getting so much conflicting things of like we're almost at this higher level of truth and understanding.
Because we haven't seen infinite mana like this before
Yes,
ever.
you're right.
Like, this is a technique of casting that is automatic. It is wide scale. It is instantaneous. And anybody who is under the effect of this can decide at any point that all the other earthen vessels that just apparate out of the earth, right?
That it can restore itself before it's even damaged. Yeah.
Yeah, it can restore itself and then also become all of them at the same time. Like, it's so good, it's so grand that Lamia can transcribe her soul onto every single soldier in the field. Then they all can pull out the Yang sword. And it's like, that's her own magical capability. It's like what Sphinx did. Like when Sphinx was fighting, she was as strong as herself. Every single copy of her was as strong as
she
herself.
Was learning information, like the information was transferring over. It's like a cloud save.
It's a shadow clone jutsu. I mean, this I'm just gonna say it now. The whole Great Disaster of the Zombies is a giant Naruto reference. Like this is a huge part of the show, but like
it is at a
Tappei was on a Naruto arc when he's writing this. like Medium is almost Naruto, like as a girl in a lot of ways of like getting built up by hype and everything. It's all the zombies coming back and old characters that have already died earlier in the story making their return. Giant heroes, but everyone kind of getting over. There's a lot of Naruto reference in this, and I'm not that's biggest fan, but I think it's done really well here. But you're on some really, really good tracks, both of you, and I'm excited to see where your brains take this. Okay. But it is really fascinating of just like how close you are. I guess I could say it.
Yeah.
We're almost there. We just need our confirmation.
I literally thought you were about to explain it and like figure it out while you were talking there for a minute, Gold.
I mean, I'm glad I'm on the right track, I guess. Also think that like that thing that like they were talking about, which is just like, this is like my thing. This was like what Echidna did. This was like whatever. Makes me feel like, okay, there is something that's going to happen. And also, of course, all the stuff with Yorna and stuff like that. Like, there's something that's going to happen by the end of this arc. I'm going to bet that is like this exactly.
Yes.
Like, somebody's going to have to transcribe their soul or something of the effect. We see it with, like, of course, the authority of gluttony also has to do with names and souls and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And it's like, ugh, this is why my brain hurts, because there's 50 iterations of the same power that is being iterated upon in the world. So it's like, this is the prototype that has been built up from all this time till now, and this is the perfected form of it. And what are they going to do with it, right? That's my only question for Sphinx, because obviously Sphinx shows up and she's like inexplicable because she's like a robot person at this point, because she is using this magic at such a scale. I believe that she just sees herself as some sort of drone, right? Like, she probably doesn't even consider her body as her actual body,
Well, like, kind of the way she talks, I feel like I have to be careful on how I ask this. Did it remind you of the way that anything else is phrased or the way anyone else speaks specifically?
Yes, it's the same thing, right? So, like, this idea that her soul is beyond something, like, I think that she is, like, there's references to, like, this is kind of weird, but, like, the white realm of the Hall of Memories that they found Louis in, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I think, they talk about, like, being the press of the odd. I think, like, in some way, somehow, she's within the world, if that makes sense. And she's doing this, because how else do you cycle out your memories? You know what I mean? Like, how do you cycle out souls and memories if you're not like controlling it somehow?
That's if they're doing it. When they were describing like the restoration magic as part of it, and that it was, especially with like Burstet's explanation later in this phase, where he makes the point of that they are brought back to the exact point they were before they were gone. It felt to me that it was more of, it's less that it was pulling their souls back out of Ode Lagna or Ode Laguna, because I think that's what Felix's ability to use this ties more into, is that he is able to actually like properly pull the soul in.
I mean, he could sense the soul itself, right? Like
which like links back to his future line of the soul isn't taking, I don't know what's going on. Like, that's why I think he's able to do this. But for what's going on here,
it could be the opposite. It could be like they found a way to like interact with the interface itself, and then they're copying it over to these things. It's not they're bringing it over; it's that they're like, okay, we're bringing this to this. If that makes sense.
Similar to how the Books of the Dead were written out, but when Subaru read one, that personality like almost overrode them. It was able to start evolving and thinking and considering stuff again.
Yes. These are copies of Ryuzu Mazer, pretty much, like, but in the sense of they're the dead body, or like the dead. I mean, not dead; it's Earth, right? But it's that plus the memories. If that makes sense.
Yeah, it's
like a duplication of a soul.
Yes,
right? Like,
exactly. It's the manufacturing of a soul, but in perfect, like, or at least maybe not perfect, I would argue, but at least decent accuracy.
Like, they're probably so dead, and they're probably all their ability is probably reincarnated. The only thing that I wonder about is Teresia's blessing when she got resurrected.
Well, I think Teresia and Kurgan aren't the same thing as this.
Right, because that was the imperfected form of it, right?
To me, I feel like that was like Pandora breaking the rules somehow.
Okay. Yeah.
I had always assumed it was.
I think it has to be separate from this, because I mean, even the description of how they are in comparison to these zombies is very different, right?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that. I think like if you take it with that, then because I was about to say something about the way in which the dead come back or whatever and stuff like that, and like the manipulation of souls and memories, stuff like that, and also for Fortuna becoming serious, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right. It makes sense if the soul transcription stuff is all stuff that Echidna does, but there's a separate thing that all the archbishops went through. I think at this point, I'm gonna go on a limb and say this: all the archbishops that call themselves archbishops all had their words said by Pandora to alter who they were somewhat.
and this is where I'm going to go into like some crazy theorizing and tangent, right? Because we're talking a lot about how these mechanisms of the world work, like Old Lagana cycling out memories, reincarnating a soul, how there's characters like Yorna that are trapped outside of that due to curses, and all of these different like mechanisms. There's like actual mechanical things that happen in this world that you can logically deduce. And it makes me think it's along the lines of, okay, Echidna was tapping into this with her experimentations and stuff too, right?
Yeah, and like someone that was involved with the Sage had to have done something similar in order to make the Books of the Dead.
The nature of Pandora's authority means she could do that herself as well, like as an innate ability. And it's really making me think that like that has a deeper meaning. Like this ability to be able to say, it's almost like the code of the universe. Do you know what I mean? Even the way Sphinx speaks, it's almost like a computer doing its checks or running things. Do you know what I mean?
Yes. Well, that was the point that I wanted to ask, if the way that she speaks reminded you to of anyone or anything specifically.
It reminded me of Volcanica. Yeah.
Volcanica.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the idea is that this is some sort of soul projection, or like some soul outside of the world. Yeah.
But it's I just, it's very intriguing to me. I wonder how Tepeya is going to play with this, because whilst it's leading me to like conclusions and I'm starting to understand these mechanisms, I don't know which character is going to have this mechanism be a huge plot relevant thing. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
Yeah.
But I think that's something that we're on the precipice, of discovering.
Now, I'm going to throw out like one or two ideas that I could potentially see that I think would be really interesting from a writing perspective. I think Petra, something happening with her could be interesting. And I think the other one would, at least my obvious pick would be Spica right now. Of like, what's going on with that?
Spica's interesting.
Because
I think the name rewriting
is like the name rewriting, right? Because you were on that topic. If this is like a code, almost like the mechanism being like that code sort of vibe, like it's Pandora using these names to rebrand, or these people even be born with these names, like it has that relevance. It's like a marker almost. Like, okay, this has importance.
Well, like even Spica's evolved ability here is shown that it's like taking the names out of the spell, like to remove its ability to it's
taking that part of the code
reconstitute.
Out, almost.
Yeah, taking them off the whitelist.
Yeah, exactly.
You're off the list.
Yeah. Thank you everyone at home for listening to this ramble, but I have to say it's gonna mean something. It's gonna be crazy, and even though me and Gold are like on the right lines, I feel like it's in still some fun way because of how consistently good Tepeya is with his writing. Gonna surprise us.
Yeah, like the one issue that I always come up with talking about this scenario is all of the varied developments of it, which is the mechanism in which souls and bodies are formed in the Real Zero universe comes with a lot of caveats. And, Roswaal even spoke about it in The Witch, that like there's many variations of what Echidna tried, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I think like the fact that like, that this is something that like the sacrament can do, interesting, because I wonder if it means that like there was somebody did something to it. I wonder, because my idea is that Sphinx did this all on her own a long time ago, right? And she did that during the Demi-Human War. She did all the stuff with Fragment of Mortal King even back then. It was incomplete back then, as far as I'm aware. And it's complete now. If she's in this mechanic, I don't know how she spoke back then, but if it was different, then that changes things, right?
I believe it was supposed to be the same way that she speaks now. Okay. Like this is just Sphinx's speech.
Yeah,
got it. Because my idea was like, is she being manipulated by Pandora somehow? But I'm like, why would she need that? Because this seems.
I think it's more Sphinx's character speaking on the fact that there is a level of logic to this world that you don't initially see, right?
Do you think that Sphinx is working on behalf of the observers then?
That is a possibility. I mean,
because
like,
she's part of this prophecy.
We learn in this phase, actually, from Ooblik that they can lie with information because they told him that Subaru was a stargazer.
True. And, like...
Is it really lying, or is it just misinterpreting information on Ooblik's side?
That's fair, but I think there's some shenanigans going on with that. Like, I don't think the observers are interfering, right? Like, obviously with these stargazers and stuff. This is not just observation anymore. Do you know what I mean? Like,
my brain kind of hurts about it too, because I thought about this. The observers, plural, right? Or people who control where the blessings go. We know where the blessings kind of originate on Logna. The core of Ad Logna is sort of where, like, you can get to it in the Hall of Memories, right? So at one point, I think Flugel was an observer, perhaps, or something like that. One of them. Or maybe he is now. I don't know.
Maybe that's what happens to, like, sages of the past. Like, when they
transcended.
That's their afterlife. They become observers. Yeah. That's an interesting theory. I like that.
Yeah.
And go ahead.
I was going to say, like, it makes me wonder if... Okay, so star names, even in this very chapter, Spica was named Star. The narration said something very poetic. It was like, the sinners all have the name bearing stars, right? Or something like that, right? What did it say? Wielding the power they had been endowed with, one who became sinners, never to be forgiven by the world, possessing the same power as them, an atoner who walked the path of indemnifying the world, right? So these people held the name of stars. Observers are in the stars. By putting the name onto it, people with authorities are against the observers. My brain is hurting.
Yeah.
and then, okay, wait, we're onto it there somewhere. If all the people with authorities are against the observers, then Sphinx can't be with Pandora. She's here with the prophecy of all of these stargazers to do something with the prophecy in order to create some sort of chaos and turmoil, or to bring out... Okay, I get why curses are involved, right? Because of Groovy Gumlet, right? His thing, the curses probably kill the body duplicates, right?
Well, Groovy's thing is curse tools, not curses necessarily. Like, that's more of what, if we remember from Slothif, Hannibal was like invoking in.
Yes.
Like, he did use curses in his fighting style against not Zarestia, the other one.
Very, very similar to Olbart's shinobi techniques too, right?
Yes.
Well, he used Olbart's shinobi techniques, but Hannibal himself also made use of curses a la Arc 2.
Right. I was thinking that, like, you need to have... They might need to have something be forced upon Spica now. You know what I mean? They need to have Spica be vulnerable in this situation or do something here. I don't know what, because Groovy I don't see outside of the curse tools, right, being helpful in defeating the zombies. But the observers are like, yeah, you need to have this Sin Archbishop. She needs to help you, right? It goes against what they're fighting against, right? So they are placing her in a position or hoping that she does or evolves her power somewhat. And she does. And then what for? You know what I mean? Sorry, my brain blast.
We've gone on this for a bit. I'm gonna let you guys relax your minds for a touch here, and we can move on to just another fun part of this phase, which is two drunk dads and a swearing hyena walk into a bar.
This was one of my favorite parts of this phase, just because of how absurd and silly it is, and the fact that consistently Heinkel gets dogged on, but then the narration and Rowan in this scenario are thinking, wow, he's talking about this situation like that. That means he's pretty tough. Like, so the narration, like the story itself, is complimenting Heinkel by insulting him and making him lose. It's so interesting.
he can't see his own worth even in a moment like this where he is arguably like the better dad in the room.
Oh my
from
God.
what we can tell.
Significantly, because okay, this was the thing that was spoiled to me, and we've mentioned in a previous podcast, but we now know Rowan is Cecilus's dad, and is also of the same type of personality as him.
Yeah, I mean, it would be kind of obvious for us to infer that now, even if, like, just because of
go,
all
my
the hints.
son, achieve the heavenly sword. You're just not there yet. What the fuck
exactly.
is the heavenly sword?
Do you two recall what Cecilus mentioned about his siblings, though?
That he had to kill them? Is that right?
It wasn't that he did.
Oh,
Was that his dad?
Yeah.
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 Like, this is it's come up before. Now that that's confirmed that, like, Rowan is the one that is, like, not great. Like, they couldn't stand up to his... I think Cecil was describing it as, like, they weren't strong enough to stand up to the training.
Yes.
Yeah. His training was very brutal, right?
But, I mean, it's even mentioned here that Ceci cuts him down because he was being problematic at court, right?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right. He did.
I mean, that's just like a Vincent snaps his fingers and Cecilus is going to do. Adult Cecilus will do what he's told.
Yeah, but also I think there's a willingness there from Cecilus to strike down his father, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Like, young Ceci here isn't going to share the stage with his dad.
No.
Yeah, yeah. Actually, now that you mention it, I wonder if when Cecilus is older, he's a little bit more tolerable.
Well, the little bit we got of him, like the very small amount we got in EX4, I definitely got that impression that he's not as bad as he is as a child.
Yeah, very much so. The interesting thing here too for me is I wonder, like, with this particular relationship between this father and son duo, obviously we have that parallel with Reinhard and Heinkel, right? I wonder if this is going to be a learning thing for Heinkel. This is going to be like I was a bad dad too, but that not only is there so much worse out there, but I can do better, right? I think
I can do better is the more important side of that.
Yeah. But the acknowledgement that, Rowan is still really fucked up.
Well, we've talked about before that Heinkel's experience with the situation is definitely predilected on the fact that when memory gaps are taken out, it's kind of harder. Like, when your memory's rewritten, what can you do about it? He's in the same position as anybody else, being like, who is Rem? Like, who is Julius? Who is whatever? If what Pandora did was true, which, like, seems to be, right?
For who? His wife?
Yeah.
No, so his wife has
Sorry, yeah. She had the sleeping
beauty thing. Like, he knows exactly who she is. She just is out for the count.
It's a disease that people attributed to the gluttony stuff because that was a thing they already knew that they could think was similar, right?
Yes.
Well, reverse of that. It is they attributed the gluttony stuff to the sleeping beauty syndrome that his wife has. Because it was just someone who wasn't waking up.
Right.
But I'm really enjoying Rowan's characterization because as a character, like, even with Groovy, like, smelling out his murderous intent, you could tell he's like a total blackguard kind of character, right? Like, he's that black of heart, all interested in himself. I mean, he literally says, this is the third act of my life now. And obviously, there's the similarities between him and Cecilus, but what I think this is also saying is maybe it's almost like he's living vicariously through Cecilus in a way. Like, it's a thing of, like, I'm actually the main character, and you're the one who's progressing my story, is the kind of vibe I'd get from him. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I know exactly what you mean. Yeah,
he's definitely one of those pageantry moms.
Yes,
you know what I mean?
Yes, exactly. Because it's the same thing of, like, all these siblings died because they couldn't hold up to the training, and Cecilus is just one of the strongest in the world, and Rowan got killed by Todd in Arc 7 at one point.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, Rowan is...
I mean, Todd blew him up with basically a bomb.
He did blow him up. He cut his face in half when he went out the door. Like, he actually got the drop on him. Like, Rowan is fallible.
Yeah. His instincts, aren't as sharp as Cecil's by a long shot. Yeah.
He was also drunk, which I'm sure makes.
Well, he's always drunk.
He's
that's
always
the
drunk.
thing.
Yeah, that's his baseline.
Doesn't stop Heinkel.
Exactly. But that's the contrast, right? Where I think I talked about this before last arc, in which I think Heinkel's development is pretty big. I mean, it'll be pretty big to support here, but like one of the periods here that I really like and I think is going to come to fruition is he is going to get a moment like his ancestors, I think.
Yes.
He is definitely going to get a moment where he cuts down a dragon, defeats it. I think like that's set up so well because obviously like Halbel did it very easily in this part, but when they're regenerating, when they're coming back, it'll be him, living back, like his pride as a warrior that he hasn't had in a long time.
He fought Missoria, or rather Madeline more so.
Yes, Madeline
back in
and he was
but he got his ass kicked
5
because he
or
was
7.
But because he was too scared, he let his guard down because he's like, this is on the same level as somebody who's on the level of Reinhard.
It's like he really needs to hear that advice from his dad, like Wilhelm gives to Subaru in Arc 3 of don't become strong, be strong, right?
Mm-hmm.
But he's never going to hear it from his dad, right?
Well, the bonds that we've kind of already had him start to establish in this arc, or I guess was rather the previous in Arc 7, of like his connection and building relationship up with Garfield, who is someone that doesn't look at the gap in power as something to be scared of.
Yes,
Rather he sees it as something to close.
Yeah.
And is willing to throw hands at people far better than him in order to make that fight go.
Because failure makes you learn as well. Like, it makes you learn quicker. And having that confidence to be able to say, maybe I'm not always going to succeed, but still trying anyway is a very admirable quality, right? Especially in a warrior.
So that is something that Heinkel could get from Garfield.
My thing also is I think it's really important for Heinkel to have this big heroic moment, not just because of the development of his character, it makes sense, it's also satisfying, but I also think it's going to lead into Reinhard's future arc, right? Where, obviously, Reinhard's a hero and that's all he can be, but when, as we've discussed before, the potential of him losing that, Heinkel's going to have to step up to the plate, but I think it's also going to be an element of him reclaiming his fatherhood for Reinhard, maybe?
Yeah, because he's never going to be equal with, him while he has the sword saint thing. Because what else do you have to learn, right?
But it's to say, when that blessing either transfers to Heinkel or goes completely, Heinkel's going to be the one that could be like, I'm the hero, and not only that, I'm the father, I'm going to protect my son, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I feel that. I feel like it's close, something like that's close at hand.
Go ahead.
As soon as he overcomes this part, I think
he also has his hangups about blaming Reinhard the same way that Wilhelm does about leading to his mom's death.
Yes.
Yeah. I think it's going to be a big
fair.
Part of it. Yeah. I like my interpretation is that next arc we go back to the kingdom. I think that is going to be a big part, like their family dynamic.
Yeah, it's going to be a big through line of that arc, for sure. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I think it still has to be connected somehow because not only are they all going to be warring still, like the three, like it's been set up very well that these three people in the family are part of different camps for the throne, right? If we go back to the kingdom and trying to work that out, then it becomes, a thing.
Belt's camp is also the only one that's kind of not in Subaru's immediate alliance phase.
And because of that, they need attention bad. So I think that's the next part.
But I think that also adds to the idea of the isolating influence of Reinhard, right? Like not even just like the thematics of his character, but if a person like Reinhard was real, like Felt is trying her best to recruit new people to the camp, build this thing up. But Reinhard always has this isolating thing of, I am the sword saint, I'm going to solve problem and it's done. Do you know what I mean?
It's very interesting. Depending on how long this goes, I wouldn't be surprised if in the meanwhile, Felt's camp is like doing a huge reform across the kingdom.
Yes, no, exactly.
Like, everybody's gone and like she's been like doing her whole rise up, all you city dwellers, I'm your queen, I'm going to be your queen, that type
of you have to imagine she's been doing something because it's like after Arc 5, it's a month back home and then another month to the tower. They spend however long they do there. And then it's multiple months before they even get to this state. And it's going to take same amount of time to get back to the kingdom.
Yeah.
Felt's gonna have like an extra 6 months where she isn't worrying about a literal zombie apocalypse like these other three are.
She's
Or
already
dying
a
of
favorite.
dragon blood like Krush.
And she's already a
they're
favorite of the selection itself, so she's going to get a huge advantage from this politically.
Yeah, because she has the actual royal blood lineage of the Laguna family.
I mean, a lot of they kept on being optimistic about the optics for some of the people, all of the camps getting involved with the Empire, but there could be a lot of, especially traditional Lagunican nobility, that even though they dislike Felt, will be like, but they're like involved in other. They've been involved in other affairs and they've helped the Empire. Regardless of, not only does this help us, but this is a good look. For some people, that's not going to be the same truth, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Some of the sages that we met in the EX novels, come back and be like, yeah, actually, I think she earns her keep,
Dumbledore and eyebrows.
Yeah, exactly.
What's his name?
So before we get too far in for Reinhardt and Felt again,
Yes.
Just to keep things in Wallachia, opinions on Groovy Gumlet for the two of you. This is like your kind of we met him briefly in EX4, but like here is like his proper introduction in the main story.
He's one of those characters that you read and you're like, man, I can't wait to hear this voice acted because
yeah.
Because like
suck.
Yeah, exactly, 100%. And it's just like I can see the scene being so good animated and voice acted. Like that's just one of those things where it's like you think about the cool fight scenes, but like after Liliana's stuff, I've realized very well that no, sometimes the comedic scenes are the things that most need you to see it animated. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Like they slam open the door of the two warriors at the bar. It's a super elongated shadow, and someone shouts out, "What the fuck are you two doing in here when that disaster's going on outside?" And then it walks in, you hear like the jangling bits of tools and weapons, and it's just Groovy.
And
he had his deep voice.
I
think of him Levi's voice from Attack on Titan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You think like the jiggling of coins as like Heinkel absentmindedly like tosses a coin to Rowan for winning the bet or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I also there's a very small thing in Groovy's stuff, but I love the world building aspect of I'm coming to this village that's up in a mountain and it's a hidden village because they're trying to avoid taxes. And as an empire of as a general of the empire, I would be I would shut this down, but right now it's an emergency. It like really sets up a serious situation, and then it makes the comedy so effective of like, oh my god, of course it's fucking Heinkel and Rowan that he's gonna meet in that bar, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yep. It's a great like little one-off scene, at least to set up that Heinkel at least survived the initial onslaught of the zombies too.
Yeah, because they were talking about it in the meanwhile, like Groovy is probably dead, and then it cuts straight to this, which I think
also,
is very
Groovy
funny.
is one of the two lights, the two people they need to solve this scenario.
Yeah, exactly.
I won't lie, I was hoping he was dead just so it was one less new character that needed to be added to the story again at this stage, but it's fine.
I feel
He's funny. It's a comic relief.
Yeah, I was about to say, I feel like Groovy is a much needed comic relief from some of these Divine Generals, you know what I mean?
Especially with Heinkel.
Yes.
Yeah, one of the things I was thinking is like, there's a lot of new characters. Some of them gotta die. Some of them gotta die.
I mean, there's a reason there's so many. Like.
So don't knock them down, right? Unless they're coming back for some reason, and they might, right? Because my theory has always been something like, they save the Empire. It's in pretty bad shape, but at least, insofar as like the bloodline of like Vincent and Priscilla is concerned, that still has to be worked out. I think it fits her well as well. If anything happens to Vincent or whatever in this arc.
Yeah.
I'm not saying he's gonna die. I'm just being like.
But that setup Vincent has done is still relevant, right? Like.
Yeah. Speaking of Vincent's bloodline, this phase we also have Flop selling out his sister as Vincent's wife.
That was like, it's like an actual betrothal. He's like, yo, I'm just saying, after this scenario, you and Medium, you need many wives.
So I actually enjoy the idea of Medium and Vincent because I think they play off each other pretty well in a lot of ways. But I will make this complaint. I thought that Flop doing that was wildly out of character for him.
In a way, yeah. I think one of the things that you have to consider is not only the world that they're in, but also too, like I'm not saying this is like Game of Thrones, right? But like in a sense, it is like time wise and like theme wise, but like that on top of the fact that he's a merchant, I think like there's a shrewdness to him that like is supposed to come through here. That he's like he doesn't he he threw, and we see with Balaroy, right? Balaroy was one of their like the brothers, pretty much. Like they're really close to Balaroy, and he has that same sort of schmoozing attitude, womanizer, like I wouldn't be surprised if while kind and while gentle, they're very traditional in the way that they see things, like exchanging relationships for power or money or whatever.
I would actually argue it's in character because of what he's wanting to like achieve with it for two things. And this is what I'm going to say is two primary objectives of this are. One is setting up Medium for life. Because whilst like the life of an Emperor's consort can be difficult in some ways, Medium is equipped to defend herself, right?
But is it setting them up? Like, we haven't seen anything from the Emperor's consorts other than Priscilla's mom dying, like either in birth or when she was
but the idea is that Vincent's a more like, I think Flop sees in Vincent a better person.
I mean, he literally says you're going to make the Empire a better place than where it's come off now, and that's the whole point. And
because he came from the
that's totally not what I'm going to do, but yeah.
Well, no, Vincent's response was like, I don't like the implications of it being bad before this, but okay.
Right. The idea of it being like, for Vincent, I wouldn't be surprised if it's like, sure, I'll take it, but it's like, to him, we've talked about this before, but I've always seen his desire not to do this as like him not planning for his future, right? And he's given the permission now, but to
start doing
it. He has like no experience with women or anything like that. Like he hasn't thought about it in like a decade, and like because of that, it's now like we'll get to it when we get to it. We'll see if it works out.
And from the merchant perspective of Flop, right? Not only is it a thing of like revenge against the world, I want to have this powerful person on my side to get revenge against the world and make it a better place, but that like power aspect to it, I think it is genuinely a thing of. Not only do these two run off against each other well, but he's thinking, this is going to secure my sister's life. Like, that's his like negotiating thing.
I honestly think that Medium, I mean, she's like romantic enough that like she, in this world, and I think in the real world too, there's a sort of idea that like if you try hard enough with a person, you can probably find their good qualities, right? And somebody as lofty as the Emperor, you could probably get to know anyways. I don't think she's shocked by it, but she's not going to be like, I can't believe you did this, or like, actually despairing about it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I guess I'll just ask, do you think Medium would be grateful that Flop has done this, or feel more betrayed that he did this without asking?
I would say more... I do kind of feel like Medium has a bit of a crush on Vincent, so I don't know how to answer this. I think... From that perspective of like she's very much is interested in Vincent and she has that dynamic with him, I think that could be a source of like, okay, that's kind of nice because of the way she reacted. But I think she's also a very like stubborn and like, even though she's easily like directed, I think she's very not wishy-washy, right?
Well, the thing is with Medium is that she's a very free-spirited individual. I think that she has an open mind about the situation. I think it's not the sense of like, this is it, I can't believe you did that. I think it's like
in her life kind of thing.
Yeah, in her mind, it's like, if this doesn't work out, I'll just kick his ass.
Yeah, yeah,
fair.
I think that's more likely.
Or even, it's not even if it doesn't work out. If he doesn't work out, I'm going to kick his ass and make him work out. Almost.
Yeah, well, that's what she's going to do, right? I'm just saying that, like, whatever the situation might be, somebody as strong as, and willful, who's willing to call out. Like, we've seen very clearly with, like, the interaction with Subaru last time, that Vincent needs somebody who's willing to call him out on his bullshit.
He needs an Otto.
Yeah.
Yes.
So like Medium is that 100%. She's not going to put up with somebody being annoying or whatever. She's going to call them out.
And
I think that
the other side to this, which is the more interesting theorizing side, and this is something that I've been wanting to talk about this whole time actually, which is more Flop's plans for the future. So I feel like this has been kind of in our face this entire time with Flop saying all this stuff about revenge against the world, right?
Yes.
And us now learning in EX4 that like what the motivations for Balaroy doing his whole plot was, right? Of wanting to kill the Sword Saint, Reinhard, to avenge Miles. Vincent like confirms to Flop that Balaroy didn't die a traitor. Like, he was doing something for the Emperor, but then also pursuing his own desires, right?
Yeah.
He just had to take the fall. But
Yes.
he makes the point to say in his narration, I'm not going to reveal more information because that's a obstacle that's unsurmountable for him. That is setting up for me that Flop is going to learn this information somehow about Reinhard being the one who's responsible for Miles's death, and he is going to become an opponent to Reinhard some way. Not in the he's a huge fighting threat, but I mean he's going to plot. And I think him having access
It's
to
a real
the Emperor,
good thing Julius's name is eaten right now, and
Yes,
Flop doesn't have the ability to learn that.
Right, that's true.
Exactly, yeah. And I could even see, because Julius doesn't know Flop's relation to Balaroy at all, I could genuinely see maybe Flop learning this information about Reinhard and all of this other stuff through him. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And leading to potential
possible.
confrontations with him and Julius too because of that as well. But what I'm trying to say is I think this is also a setup for Flop having influence with Vincent if something's to see who he can find out to get revenge on. Because it would thematically be appropriate, because revenge against the world, who's the world's favourite child? It's Reinhard, is it not?
Fair enough.
That is very true. I also think that a part of this is going to be, I think, the art kind of foreshadowed it very well, and obviously this chapter foreshadowed it very well. I honestly think that Flop is going to take over Chisha's position in the Empire, in in Vincent's Empire, I think.
Yeah, that'd be interesting.
I think that's
my thought at the time was he was going to take Burstet's position, more specifically.
Yeah, like a foreign minister. Yeah, that makes sense.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I think that part of it is kind of clear, because obviously the auto parallel, but for Vincent, right? And then giving the position of somebody who is weak, in power, but strong in heart, as a divine general makes sense, I think, for the new future of the Empire.
Yeah.
True. So there's a... Go ahead.
I want to mention one last thing about this conversation, if that's okay. And that's the messages that Flop gives to Vincent as payment for getting this information from him, from Chisha, which is... Chisha is a character that I really enjoy the way Tepe has done him, in that sense of we've seen so little of him in the actual story, but his character leaves such a big impact, especially to Vincent.
Yeah.
It's so apparent. We get this thing of the first message is that there's something called the Sanctum that's been detained in the fortified city that they're heading to, which will have the answers they need to solve this whole situation. Which means that, we already knew that it was likely Chisha was setting up a plan to help the Great Disaster for Vincent after all of that was planned, right? But he was ahead of the game. He was figuring stuff out. And it's just the characterization of the last message being, Your Excellency, this is the last time, this is all I've needed to do with my assistance for getting you out that wheel out of the ditch, my job is done, I'm cleaning my hands in the afterlife, bye-bye! It's just so fucking, it's so personal, it's so, it's personality driven. I know who Chisha is despite him being dead and also me not seeing him so much in the story. Do you know what I mean?
Yes. Do you take anything from his messages? Pick up on anything there? Or have any thoughts about what else was said?
Well, from the implication, it seems this sanctum, which the word sanctum would initially make me think of a place, sounds like a person or a thing. With the way it was worded, so I'm interested to see what that it means. Also, the way Vincent reacts to it is more than just, the information he's given me is really vital. It almost seems like he somewhat knows along the lines of what it's going to be, and it's something either shocking or very wild So I'm very curious about that. Apart from that, that's all I can read at the moment from it.
Gold, you pick anything up from that? Anything that you probably shouldn't have known ahead of time?
Let's see here. No.
Okay, I'll leave it there. It'll make more sense in a bit. Something else that this phase kind of had as a point of contention, aside from like that decision from Flop, is Subaru's most egregious point that made me literally throw my phone across my bed.
Oh
in
my
frustration.
god, we get to finally talk about this, don't we? This is my major problem with this phase. Go ahead.
Subaru's ridiculous and dumb reason for deciding to stay as a child for the remainder of the arc. It's so annoying that it's persisted with this, and that was like kind of the most Tappei could come up with.
It's not even.
I just don't want to piss them off.
It annoys me because there's better explanations for why it couldn't happen right now. Like, oh, maybe Olbart, despite the circumstances being...
Just kill Olbart! I mean, it's just kill him.
It's not even just that, but it's like a thing of like, oh, maybe the argument is Olbart doesn't even want to change him back because, like, he lost his arm that one time, and that's a good reason as to why, like, oh, Olbart is refusing to do it, and we can't kill him right now because we need him. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's a better explanation in my head.
There's a lot of that where it's like, we won't kill Spica even if we wanted to, because what happens to the names, right? And this is just like a version of that, but it's like annoying.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yeah, Olbart just annoys me.
I think this is the one part of the phase that was like an issue for me. I think there could have been a better explanation than that one. Do you know what I mean?
It's that, and I still feel this way, even having gotten my resolutions on it all and the payoffs for all of it, that it's just too long of time that he has spent this way. Oh, and I will die on that horse that he spent way too long keeping Subaru in this state.
You shouldn't, be like this for nearly an entire arc now.
It's like 11 books at this point or something.
Yeah. And it's like, that is a crazy, crazy thing to keep up. And it doesn't have much more effect anymore now that he's safe back with Amelia Camp, you know what I mean? Like, it sort of ruins a lot of its feelings, especially now that he's acting, as I said, like more or less grounded to the way that he did before.
Yeah. I think it did a little harm to his moment with Rem and Spica, that he is still a child here.
Because, like, imagine that animated and he's still a child. It's like, okay.
It's going to be ridiculous. Like, you can read it and you hear his voice and you see in your mind, like, the person he always has been.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, like, when that's going to be animated, it's going to be this little 11-year-old boy basically adopting a 10-year-old girl, and it's going to look very bizarre and just not sit. It's going to make an emotional scene into ridiculous. So, like, I appreciate the payoff that it eventually comes to. I'm upset that Tappei decided to go the route of keeping him this way.
Yeah, that's totally fair. I'll have to see how it plays out before I speak more to how I feel about it, because I don't know how I feel about how long he's been in this way at this moment. I'll have to see the payoff to see if I feel like it's worth it, personally. But what I will say is at least the explanation for how the fix couldn't happen is more the issue I have. I know that seems very like surface level and plot holey, but it feels like a bit too much of a disconnect of like there had to be a better explanation for why this isn't happening. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I do not like that Subaru decided to stay that way, and it wasn't a situation that was forced.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. It's like the intent of it, right? It's not like, oh, it's too busy right now, or like there's a specific reason why we can't do this right now. It's I'm deciding not to do this right now because I don't want to be in trouble with all these people who are not going to care. The whole resolution for this is going to be when he comes back to normal, everyone's going to still fucking love him. That's gonna be the whole point. They're all going to follow him still.
The thing also is, he's like, oh yeah, this is just our Sin Archbishop that we have around.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, okay, well, if people know that, then like knowing that, hey, I was cursed. Yeah, somebody cursed me.
Or that's why I look like this. I'm not really the Emperor's kid.
Yeah, the people are like, oh yeah, that's Vincent right there. Okay, that makes sense. And it's like, the issue is solved, you know?
Yes.
I
All right,
mean,
off my soapbox. I had to get that out.
yeah, I honestly, I totally understand your reasoning as to why I'm not. Thank you for talking about that, because that was a thing that really pissed me off too.
Like, I noticed it, but I was like, did I miss something? Like, did I misread that or something?
Yes,
Like, maybe that makes a lot more sense than I think, and I'm missing a reason why he needs to do this.
It doesn't. It doesn't make any sense.
Okay,
It's this is just an instant of not great writing here. It could have been better. Could have been better handled.
Well, I think it's because everything's happening, right? Like,
Well, it's that, and as you said, like it already feels like he's come to the conclusion of that point of being in that. Like Subaru's identity crisis is an Arc 7 thing, not an Arc 8 thing to me.
yeah, it's kind of over now.
So from there, the only other like kind of last point that I think really deserves to be talked about is we get a little bit of Al here at the end of this phase too, if I remember right.
Yes, we do. Is it okay if I mention like one or two small things that I noticed before we get into the big topic?
Yeah, go ahead.
So Halibel talks about how he knows about Anastasia. He knows Anastasia well, and he seems to have known her for a long time. And also Ricardo. And then he mentions offhandedly at another point that his people, something about his people. I think this is almost a confirmation that Ricardo is another wolf person, right?
Yeah.
And that,
I couldn't tell because of the way that he separated it. I wasn't able to tell it fully.
But I feel like there's a connection there. Like there's an actual like familial relation, which is kind of.
I think that's what they're saying. Yeah.
And the other thing I will mention is the actual like choreography of this moment where Roswaal's in the carriage and we get the evil eyes popping on everyone, right? And all of the people come in, and Roswaal finds the first opponent, does his like martial arts, and then mixes it with his magic by like thrusting into the enemy's eyes, then using Goa, was such a cool like action set piece moment. I cannot wait if I get to see that animated. It's gonna be so cool to see. It's really, really, really cool. And the last thing I'll mention is my boy, Your Excellency, Gauze Ralphon.
Gauze Ralph. Oh, and Jamal had his awesome like shouting moments too.
Exactly.
Yeah, he did. Yeah.
Like, your Empress consort, stay back. I'll keep you safe. And you, sister too. I guess I'll keep you safe as well. While I was reading that, I was like, wow, Jamal was in for a fat promotion when this is all over.
Oh, yeah. Second class general deserved, for sure.
Exactly. And the other thing is, just Gauze is so fucking cool. I could tell he's not going to be a huge character, right? Like,
I can't believe your girlfriend said what she said about him. It was
so
devastating.
I'm disappointed. But just his whole thing of like he's like the opposite of Bert Stetz on like a parallel line, where it's like they're both very honored on the traditions of the Empire, but whilst Bert Stetz is like pretty pathetic and like it's very much like a self-doubt, he hates himself situation, which was an interesting thing that played out this phase, I'll say.
I mean, if you say so. I was upset that he lived. That was your story's done, my guy. Just play over die.
The reason I like it is because I think it's a good way of it's the saying of like his whole thing is that like he can't die the right way he wants to by the tradition of the Empire by being a sword wolf and dying in battle, right? Like, he doesn't earn that.
But he could have died out there alone, like hurt on the previous battlefield, watching everyone else right away to do something important, and he just died out in the middle.
He mentioned this earlier that he's going to be executed. What I think is going to be is it's going to be a showing of he's going to be the transition, like the thematic transition of the new Empire as he gets executed at the end of this arc. Is my thoughts right?
Sorry,
because the whole thing is going to be that like he's the representative of the traditionalist, the conservative, the old guard, right? And he has to go. So I think that's what his character is being saved for. I don't think it's like an actual important character development thing. I think it's more of a thematic thing.
Well, I think it'd be very dark if the arc ends with, and now we're killing this guy.
Yeah, and now we've saved everyone else from this awful death, and it's finished with cutting off this old man's head.
That's fair. That's fair.
I think he should have died out there on the battlefield, and I think that would have been a better story. But it is what it is.
I think he has to die now in some sort of decently poetic way because obviously he's saving it for that moment.
Yeah.
But like, how much do you want me to care for this guy? Like, he already did annoying things. Yeah.
But, you know what? I'll throw this out to you two real quick. A literal Deadpool. Just pick 2 characters that you think don't make it out of Arc 8 alive.
Okay. I think Rowan's dead.
Ooh,
that's an interesting one.
I think Rowan's dead. I think Groovy's fine. Because he's going to be funny. I think...
People who are already zombies don't count either.
Exactly, because they're antagonists, right? What I will argue is I think it's gonna be Burstet, and I think it's gonna be, and this sanders me to say, I think it's gonna be Zakir.
Okay.
That would be a devastating loss.
I think Zakir's gonna have like a big heroic moment. Because he already had one in the previous arc, but I feel like it's going to be like a full, like, as the ultimate womanizer, all of these women are in danger, and I'm going to go in and save the day. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's going to be his, like, big heroic, oh yeah, we're never going to forget about his character because he's just so awesome and died for people.
Yeah. I think that's probably it. I think it's going to be, let me count on my hands. It's probably going to be Rowan. I think the idea is that either Cecilus kills him, or like not quite, but like the idea is going to be that he's going to be fighting something. Cecil's going to be like, "Whoa, Dad, what the heck? You're alive?" And he's like, "Yeah, man, I did something cool. Aren't you proud of me?" He's like, "No, I hate you."
Oh,
That's it. And then like Heinkel's like, "What the fuck?"
Yeah, this is what could happen to me. Ooh.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
Your son hates you. I thought it's supposed to be the other way around.
Yep, exactly.
I think, and this is me throwing something out here there, I'm going to say Ooblik might die. And the reason I'm going to say Ooblik might die is because...
he should.
Not only because I think he should, but also because I think it's going to be a point of tension, not because we care about Ooblik, but because Ooblik has information that's helpful. I think it's going to be a thing of like, oh, he dies and that's a big shock, super can't reverse it, fuck, we lose a useful piece on the board. Do you know what I mean? I think that's going to be a point of like later tension.
That's part of it. Yeah, I could see that being the case. I think Mesri is going to die, even though it's not really a character.
Fair enough. No, I can buy that.
And then it's going to turn into a zombie, probably.
Terrifying, but okay.
Yeah.
I mean, we already have the Vulgrim.
Yeah.
I can't remember how to say his name.
No, I think the rest of the Divine Generals are probably fine. I mean, Olbart, I want to die. Actually, no. Mogr Hogane is going to die.
Gauze could die.
Gauze could die.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Man, Wolf out here just killing the redheads. Maybe he's the one that gave Reinhard the divine protection.
It was me, Barry.
Killed Theresia. I took your divine protection at supersonic speed.
To make you die at just a white whale's touch.
I just wanted to get some early thoughts on who you didn't think was safe.
I think all of Amelia Camp's people are fine. I think all of
he changes the entire story to kill off half the Amelia Camp in an arc he didn't plan on.
Yeah,
if they end up doing that, I would be like, what were you thinking? This doesn't work, bro.
I mean, maybe that's why he's setting up Otto. You don't know.
I think maybe one of Subaru's camp members might die. Like one of the Pleiades battalion might die.
Devastating as well.
I could see that. I think any deaths from the Amelia camp is going to have to wait into at least 1 or 2 more arcs.
True.
The lizard one, so we don't have to think about them.
Just wanted to get that out there. Anything else you two wanted to hit on before you jumped to Aldebaran?
Yes. Anything else you want to chat about, Gold?
No, I'm all right.
Yeah, okay. Out time, baby!
Okay, 50 minutes. Oh, you see the rest of the video? That's 50 minutes.
Yeah, watch that be the halfway point of the video.
Guys, enjoy the next 2 hours of owl-related content where we're just speculating and Connor's going to be like, yeah, cool.
No, so
Weekly Owl Corner.
here is where I admit that in the last couple recordings, I thought I was further along in the later parts of the story than I actually was. And I said some things that are going to sound like I was spoiling these two. I want you to know, it wasn't intentional. Now I'm caught up, and I can't talk shit. So, you two, go.
Okay, so we get this whole parallel moment between Owl and Subaru, where he's like, at the end of this, he's like, Priscilla, I'm definitely gonna save you, as Cecilus saves him from like a weird torturer guy.
Yes.
Someone that like cuts your guts out and stuff like that. Very specifically weird, I won't lie. But we just get this kind of...
At least it wasn't Ishmael again.
Yeah, at least it wasn't Ishmael, that's true. But we just get kind of this, honestly, in my opinion, kind of funny moment where Ceci just saves Owl.
It is pretty funny.
It's pretty coincidental too. It's not like a big moment where it's like, oh, I came to save you. It's just, oh, I saved this guy.
Yeah,
Ceci knows who the main characters are, I guess.
Yeah, he does have the timing to him. Yeah. Let's see. Sorry. I'm just pulling it up in the thing. Yeah, so like at this point, both Priscilla and him are captured individually. They're both saved individually. Last we saw Al, what was he doing again?
We don't know necessarily.
Yeah.
He had gone off from the other forces. I think he left the rest of the
he told
the
someone,
camp.
He told someone to tell everyone else that he was going to help Priscilla, but we don't know exactly. Like, obviously, he says he's going to do that, but he might have been up to other stuff during that time. But the other thing is that he, like, which kind of dropped into him doing this. It's like, it seems like he's... Video game analogy again, it just makes sense for the way he does these things. It's like he's on a boss rush, right? Where like he's seemingly been going through a load of these undead he's been fighting through to try and get to Priscilla. And this one, he literally says, I can't get past you, right? I can't fight to get out and I can't run to get out. And that's why Ceci needs to be the one that's there, right? To break that out. But it feels like Al is almost like at a low point again. He's like hit his limits. He's not able to get the stuff done by himself in the very arrogant way before, where he's always like, I can solve every problem, right? With me and Priscilla, we can solve every problem, but now we're separated, we're all buggered. Do you know what I mean? Like, we're getting that low point vibe from him again, which we already had from the previous arc. Alce is just a pretty depressing person.
Yeah, I think in this scenario, Al is sort of in the moment, like somebody accidentally figured out, like somebody wants to torture him. It doesn't set off his thing, right? Because he's not about to die, right? So like at that point, he's in a pretty bad predicament. And I think like this moment. Okay, this moment's actually interesting, right? Like literally, I think this is just like a cheeky joke, but like it's kind of like, come on now. Cecilus is saying something like, you're like something about, unfortunately co-starring with a villain of poor taste such as yourself is dame, like no good, right? And he's saying that to Al, and it's like, it's like one of those things where it's like, okay, what are we talking about here? Let me see. Is there anything in particular that we're supposed to pick up on? I'm sorry.
No, I just wanted to get your like, it was more of like what's he been up to.
Meanwhile,
yeah.
I mean,
like that he and Priscilla are what appear to be still in the capital where all of the zombies are, and not in a good scenario. Like, what's he been up to? What's he doing? What's his plan?
It's like
I just want to kind of get your thoughts and stuff.
We very last saw him where.
I think we last saw him in Guarl, like before the main attack on the capital happened. I don't remember seeing him actually in like all the fights there.
Okay. Yeah, it's interesting. I think one of the things to note is that obviously, when Priscilla's captured by Lamia, it makes sense, right? We don't know where Yorna is, and we don't really know where Madeline is, right? We don't know Archaea. Sorry, we don't know where Archaea is.
No, but it can be assumed that Archaea probably managed to win that fight somehow.
Yeah.
Yes,
It's
but
like
then
the general assumption that Priscilla and Yorna did not get out of that the way they wanted to.
Yeah.
and
Where's
then
your
got captured by zombies.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like, obviously, Archaea didn't kill them. Then they got captured by zombies because they're like unconscious or something.
Mm-hmm.
And then is she okay? So like in this scenario, the coordination between like being saved, like conspicuous like this, is like, okay, where are they right now? Are they in the base camp of the enemy? Sphinx nearby? Like where are they being dungeoned?
Right? I mean, you could guess probably the Imperial Palace.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's true. But like, is Sphinx somebody who wants to take? I mean, I guess Lamia probably wants to take over the capital.
I mean, yeah, I think from what I remember from the narration, that's the kind of like we don't know exactly where, but it's set somewhere in the capital.
No, you don't. You have no. It's not supposed to be clear where she is.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and when we're in this situation right now with like Al, shedding distance from the group. This reminds us, of course, of Arc 5.
Mm-hmm.
There he was killing all the members of the council.
And witch cultists as well.
And witch cultists as well. In this moment, I wouldn't be surprised if he was talking to Sphinx. That's all I'm saying.
Maybe, yeah.
Or he tried to find her, and then she's like, "What are you doing? Get out of here!"
Don't make me tell you your. Don't make me tell you your stars are bad.
Yeah, your stars are bad.
I'll do it.
I do. The interesting moment with this is like the threat of this undead telling Al, "I'm not going to kill you. I'm just going to torture information out of you." And Al like reaches for his dowel to like cut his own neck.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, oh my god, like damn, like obviously that's going to be his solution, but it's just kind of. It's so in character for Ceci to stumble upon that and make that all about him and like his scenario. It's just so interesting. Yeah.
It's an interesting pairing that they've put up together now between Ceci and Al.
And it's also, I think it's a big thematic thing that Al is kind of on his own. The whole thing of I'm going against being that follower, right? I'm going to go rescue my princess, my Amelia, you could say. Mm-hmm. And he's all by himself. He's in a situation where this is the worst case scenario. They're not going to kill him. They're going to torture him, and he's going to be stuck. So he goes to try and remedy that. And then who should show up but one of the people that he clearly is either going to, like, in the future, either thematically or actually in plot, resonate with and go along with, or it's going to be someone who he's opposed to, right? Because he's got that whole thing of, I don't want to be the follower. I need to make my own destiny. I need to be the sage, not the hero. Or whatever.
You know what I thought about just now? I think there might be something that he has to do in the meanwhile. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, he's on his own mission
to tick off. Like, he's got his side quests that he needs to do.
Yeah, exactly. Like, everybody's preoccupied with this right now. He's trying to figure it out a little bit himself, obviously. But then he's like, I'm here for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
I have to get X, Y, or Z. And it might have to do with the stuff that Sphinx is doing. But whatever the core of this magic is, might have to do with something that he's interested in.
Mm-hmm.
I think, like, there's a chance that he's trying to take something.
Go ahead.
Yeah. He's trying to, like, see something back. Like, of course, he was given something by Sphinx, presumably the Pride Witch Factor, right? And then, like, what she's up to now has to either do with him somewhat or not, because either he failed, right, and it's just like plan B, right, or it's like, I mean, maybe this is like plan D for Sphinx, right, because she's tried so many times, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
but like at this point he has to reclaim something of his own. Like, he has a plan with Priscilla, because like he obviously still cares about Priscilla. That's his like primary objective, to save her. But like at this point, he has to kind of coordinate everything with her again, and then like try to give her the key to the. That's probably it too. He's probably like, if Vincent can die here, it'll be great for us.
Yes.
True.
I think it's probably what he's thinking right now.
He also seems to not like Vincent at all. Like, there's the kind of thing of like, I wouldn't even be sad if he'd be dead, right?
No, he does not seem like his fan. He was there for Subaru for a while, and now he's here for
there for
Priscilla.
his bro, and now he's there for his home.
Yeah,
Okay. Well, with that amazing finish, I didn't have too much else to say on this phase. I think it had some like really big highlight moments. I remember that the first time I read the Spica chapter, I was basically in tears.
I was crying. Yeah.
It has a lot of great stuff. Otto's great. Roswaal's great. Vincent's great. Congrats to him and Medium on the engagement. But beyond that, I think we're ready for the next one, right?
Yeah.
Shit's gonna start going crazy the more this happens.
Yeah.
This was a super fun one, guys. Thank you for watching up until this point, and goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.